What's going on YouTube? Today we're going to talk about the Elastic Stack. So basically Elastic Stack is similar in principle to Splunk, except it's not considered as a SIEM. So the similarities between Elastic Stack and Splunk is actually in the concept of searching and analyzing data. So what Elastic Stack does, first, we actually ingest the data, into Elasticsearch, and that is one similarity between Elastic Stack and Splunk. So basically, we upload the data from any source. So once we upload the data, we start searching the data, and then we go to analyzing the data. We look for patterns, we look for suspicious maybe connections, whatsoever we're looking for, and that's also another similar component with Splunk. So search, analyze. Now, after searching and analyzing the data, we come to visualize the data. So basically, Elasticstack allows you to visualize the data and create dashboards. Now the thing is, Elasticstack and Splunk, they have some differences. So basically, Splunk is a SIEM, right? So you can use Splunk not only to search and analyze data, but also to maybe create alerts, maybe extract patterns. But the case with Elasticstack is kind of different. So in Elasticstack, we actually search, analyze, and also visualize and create dashboards. So it's focused more on the analysis, data analysis. Now in Splunk and Elasticstack, we can ingest data from just any source. And we will see how Elasticstack works. So basically Elasticstack has 4 components. So in Elasticstack, the first component, or let's put them by order. So the first component is the beats. So basically beats are agents, much like you can install them on an endpoint from which you want to gather the source, the logs. So basically beats are agents. We can install them on endpoints to transfer the data. Okay, so basically they gather the data and then we can transfer the data. So, but where? We transfer the data to the second component of the Elastic Stack, which is the log stash. So log stash. So in Logstash, what happens here, we process the data that has been shipped or sent by beats. So here we say data shipping, and here we say processing. So in Logstash, we process the data. So it's considered as data processing engine used to take the data from different sources. And we can apply filters, normalize the data, and send it to the destination. So after the data is processed and normalized, it then gets sent to the third component of the Elastic Stack, which is the Elasticsearch. I'm going to call it Elasticsearch. So in Elasticsearch, we are ready to analyze the data. So what happens here is we search, and actually store the data. So basically data is stored, store and search. So beats gather the data, gather and ship the data. Logstash processes the data, normalizes the data, filters the data, and then data gets sent to the Elasticsearch, where we are able to search and store and search the data. And then to the last component in this stack, which is the Kibana. So in Kibana, we start analyzing the data. The data is presented in a graphical user interface where we search, analyze, and of course visualize, create dashboards. So that's in a nutshell how all of this works. So again, I'm gonna repeat. So beats is set off, as you can see, different set of different data shipping agents, we can call it shipping agents or data transfer agents, used to collect the data from multiple sources, agents. Okay, for example, we can collect Windows event logs, we can collect kernel logs, Linux logs, for example. We can collect network logs, network traffic. You can just install the beats on any destination. Okay, and then we have the Logstash. The Logstash collects data from the beats. And additionally, if you don't want to use the beats, you can configure Elastic so that Logstash gathers or collects the data from ports, or you can upload the file manually, just like we did in Splunk. We upload the data manually. You can also upload the data manually if you have it ready from any source. So Logstash, once the data is ready in Logstash, it parses, normalizes the data into, basically we call it field value pairs. So we have the field and we have its value. For example, source IP and the value of the source IP. And then after the data is processed into field and value pairs, it is stored in the Elasticsearch, where actually Elasticsearch acts as a database to make you able to analyze and search the data. Lastly, in Kibana, we have a graphical user interface. We can analyze the data, visualize, and create dashboards. Okay. So that's the concept of the Elastic Stack. So we don't only have Splunk, we also have Elastic Stack. We can use Elastic Stack for the search, analysis, and visualization of data. So let's see how this looks like. So before I start, I'm using this room here. The room is from TryHackMe, investigating with ELK 101. So in this scenario, we're going to investigate VPN logs. Let's look at the scenario. So US-based company CyberT has been monitoring the VPN logs of the employees. And the SOC team detected some anomalies in the VPN activities. So basically the company has people working remotely, or sometimes, working remotely. So basically they use the VPN to log into the corporate network to be able to access internal resources. So what's happening here is that the CyberT is investigating the VPN logs, the activity of those who are working remotely. Our task as SOC Analyst is to examine the VPN logs for January 2022 and identify the anomalies. Some of the key endpoints to note before the investigations are: all VPN logs are being ingested into the index VPN_connections. Much like in Splunk, we have an index. When we upload the data, we create an index. Same here in Elastic Stack. We create an index for the data. The index contains the VPN logs for only January 2022. A user Johnny Brown was terminated on 1st of January. We observed failed connection attempts against some users that need to be investigated. So basically what's happening, the last line here explains all of this. They noticed multiple failed login attempts using one of the users who actually works remotely. We want to find out what's the source of these failed attempts. Okay, all right. So let's see. So now to log in, we will type in the username and password. Let's see where I can find these. Okay, so it is Analyst, and the password is Analyst123. So once we are logged in, we click on Analytics. As you can see, we have the Discover, the Dashboard, the Canvas, and the Maps. So what we're going to do, we're going first to click on this menu and go to Discover to start analyzing the data. So this represents the Kibana graphical user interface, where we analyze, search, analyze, and visualize the data. Okay, so first thing first, let's get the data scene here. So I'm going to click on Show Dates, and here I'm going to filter through the desired date. So basically the start date, let's go to absolute. It was January 2022, so we're going to say January 1, update. So as you can see, we have 2,747 hits. So let's go over the right sections in here. So as you can see, first we have this section. This section represents the logs. So each log here is also known as a single document. So each one of these logs, each one of them is represented by the name, or we can call it a document. Document, log, all the same, right? So a single document containing the information, as you can see, about the event. It shows the fields and the values found in the document. So what about the fields? So on the left pane, we can see the fields here. It's called the fields pane. So it is on the left panel of the interface. It shows the list of the fields parsed from the logs. It depends on the logs. These fields change depending on the logs that we upload, or depending on the logs that are ingested into the Elastic Stack. So we can click on any field here to add the field to the filter. For example, click on source country. We can add it to the filter here. As you can see, we only see the source country in here. We click on X to remove it and to get back to the original view. Okay, now the third section will be the index pattern. So in here we can select the index. So as we upload more data into the Elastic Stack, we can create more than one index. So we select the index from here, and of course make sure to give the index a descriptive name, so that in case you uploaded more data, more than one index, we'll be able to select from the index list from here. Okay, so and here we have the search bar. So in the search bar, as you know, we search. It's a place where the user adds search queries or applies filters to narrow down the results. Okay, this is the search bar, and here we have the time. As you can see, we can filter from the start date and the end date. So for example, right now the start date is 1 January 2022 and the end date is now. So it's currently from the January up until this moment. So that's how we filter through the time. And this chart represents the event counts over time. So over the span of this period, okay, we can see the number of events or the count of events through every single day. Okay, and the last we have this bar. Okay, this bar contains the various options, as you can see, to save the search, maybe open saved searches, or we can share them to, as you can see, if you click on share, we can use Excel reports, or we can create links. So that is the breakdown of the graphical user interface of Kibana, the last component of the Elasticsearch. Now let's go ahead and answer some questions. So introduction, Elastic overview, Kibana overview. Let's see the questions here. Task 3. Okay. Task 4. Task 5. So in task 5 we got a couple questions. Select the index VPN connections and filter from 31 December 2022 to 2 February 2022. So let's get this tab over here. Okay. So 31 December 2021, and we are talking about December here. 31 December. Let's select the time to be 12 a.m. and the end date to 2nd February 2022. So we're going to select absolute 2022 and the month will be February. 2nd of February. Update. So we have 2,861 events. That's the answer. Which IP address has the maximum number of connections? So right now we go over the fields. These are the fields that appear here. So we have the source IP address. If you click on the field, we get a breakdown of the top 5 values based on the traffic generated. As you can see, the traffic or the top percent goes to the first IP address that ends with 224. So that's the answer for the first question. Which user is responsible for the maximum traffic? Again, we go to the respective field here, username, and we can see a breakdown of the top 5 usernames who generated the most traffic. In the first rank, we have James, who generated 4% of the traffic. Create a table with the fields IP, username, source country, and save. So right now we go to the visualization section. So as you can see, if you click on any field, on any document, we can see breakdown, right? Table and in JSON. So what are we going to do? We're going to create a table only with IP, username, and source country. So let's take a look at this one, for example. We have the IP, as you can see, we have toggle column in table. We click on that, and we have also the username and the source country. So username and the source country. So we have done that. As you can see, we have the documents or the events appear, time, source IP, username, and source country. These are the columns. So after having done that, let's answer the next question. Apply filter on username Amanda, which source IP has maximum hits. So right now we need to create some filters. The filter we have here is the username. So the username here, we need Amanda, right? On the username Amanda. So we click on Amanda, we can add it here. As you can see, if you click on this button, by clicking on this button, it will be added to the search. So right now we are searching the events which contain the username Amanda. So we have around 56 hits. Right now we need to take a look at what source IP address generates the most hits. As you can see, it is this IP that ends 247, was responsible for generating 56 or 53% of the traffic or of the events. So this is this IP. On January 11, which IP caused the spike observed in the time chart? So if we go to keeping the current filter active, we go to 11 January, and we see empty. We don't have events, right? So to work around this, let's cancel the current filter and go back to the original view. Now we go to 11 January, and here let's see, to 11. So on 11 January, as you can see, we have a spike, and the count of events was 280 events. So the question is, what IP caused the spike here? If you click on this period, right, by clicking on this, we are interested in the events that happened in 11 January. So by clicking on this interval, we'll be able to show these events. So the question is, which IP caused the spike? Let's go to source IP. As you can see, the IP here ends with 191, was responsible for generating 98% of the traffic or of the events generated on the mentioned date, which was 11 January. How many connections were observed from IP 238.224, excluding the New York state? Let's go back to the original view. Okay, now how many connections were observed from the IP? So let's go to source IP. The one ends with 224. Add this to the filter. And excluding the New York state, let's go to New York state, or the state field, source state. Now we have a New York and Michigan. How to exclude New York is simply by clicking on the minus button here. What we do actually, as you can see, the filter has been created so that it filters or shows the events containing this IP and excludes the events that actually contain New York as a source state. So we have around 48 hits, and this is the answer. So that's for this task. Okay, so the next task, we will be exploring the Kibana query language, and then create dashboards and visualizations. Alright, so in the search bar here, instead of searching or using the fields to filter out the search, we can use the Kibana query language for a more advanced search. So how this works, so basically in the field here, we can search for anything, right? For example, if we search for James, it will return all of the events that contain the word James, right? So it accepts free text search. At the same time, to use the advanced or to use the Kibana query language, we have to use the field value based search. For example, here are the fields. If you are interested in filtering the events for a specific value of one of these fields, we can use it here. For example, let's take this one. The source state is let's remove this one for now and update. Okay, so source state Florida. Let's say I want to show only events where the source state is Florida. What I can do, I can type in the source state and then I type in the value. Doing that, as you can see, will show the events where the source state is Florida. Okay, now we have the logical operators and or not. So basically, if you want to show or want to satisfy two conditions one at a time, we use and. So here we have and. Say for example, source IP, we use column, and the source IP can be, let's see here, this. Update. So what we're doing here, we're displaying the events where the source state is Florida and the source IP is 69. As you can see, we have 58 hits. We can also use or. So instead of and, or satisfies, it's enough to satisfy only one condition. Either the source state is Florida or the source IP is 69. Okay, so it will show the events or the logs where the source state is Florida or the source IP is 69. Some of these events, okay, have the source IP as 69, 208, and some of them have the source state Florida. Okay, so only one of these two conditions. Understanding how to use the Kibana search language to search the logs, let's answer these two questions. Create a search query to filter out the logs from source country as the United States. So we don't need the United States as a source country. And show the logs from user James or Albert. How many returns were returned? Okay, let's see here. So the first thing we have to do, we have to exclude the United States as a source country. Right? Like that. And then, oops, no results match your search data. Let's go back. Let's read the question one more time. I think create a search query to filter out the logs from the source country as the United States. Okay, and show logs from either James or Albert. So what we have to do here, we have to filter using only the source username. So username here, the field username, James or Albert. So James, so Albert, or username James. Do we have James? Yeah. Let's see. So we have 101 hits. So 101. Incorrect. Let's go back. Source country is United States. Still we have 101, Albert or James. So why this is wrong? Create a search query to filter out the logs from source country as the United States and show logs from user James or Albert. Okay. User Johnny Brown was terminated on 1st January 2022. Create a search query to determine how many times a VPN connection was observed after this termination. So we're going first to select the date to be the start date 1st January as a termination, and the end date will be up until now. Want to find out how many times a VPN connection was observed after his termination. So let's change the time here so that it will be January 1, 2022. 2022, not 1. Okay. 1 January. And he will be up until now. And let's remove these filters. Okay. So 1 January 2022, and the username will be Johnny Brown. Let's say user name Johnny Brown. We have 1. So only 1 hit. Is that correct? It is. Well, what happened with this? Let's go back to this. Create a search query to filter out the logs from the source country as the United States and show logs from user James or Albert. Let's do that one more time. So if we remove the current filter and go back to the original filter, which was December 31, February 2, username, so we have James, remove this one. So again, user name will be first Albert or username James. Or this time I get 161. Last time I got 101. Maybe because I changed the case sensitivity of the OR. So if we answer with 161, so it's true. So it's case sensitive, guys. The conditional statements or and should be in lowercase. Okay. The next task we will be going through creating visualizations. So I have 2 questions here. Which user was observed with the greatest number of failed attempts? And how many wrong VPN connection attempts were observed in January? So to answer these questions, we will have to go over the visualization section of this video. Visualization and creating dashboards. So we're tasked to display or create a visualization from which we will be able to conclude the user with the greatest number of failed login or failed connection attempts. Okay, so let's go to the usernames here. So we go to username and we see the visualize button. We click on the visualize and we will be able to, as you can see, get a visualizations of the usernames. We can select from the visualization tab, bar, it can be metric, it can be table, you can select the type of visualization, of course, depending on the data type. So for now, I'm gonna leave it as bar, as you can see here. On the left, I can customize the settings of this visualization. For example, as you can see, here we display on the vertical axis the count of records, the count of connections from every user. And as you can see, if we click on top values, horizontal axis, display top values of username, you can customize this axis as well. As you can see, number of values, we show 5, we can show more than 5, let's say 10, and we'll be able to see more statistics about every user. Count of records, we can sort by the count or by the alphabetical order, descending or ascending. And here we can display the change display name, top values of username, we can change this as well from here. Same with the count of records. On the y-axis, we can customize the settings. Okay, so now we are interested in displaying the users with the greatest number of failed attempts. So we can see in general a visualization of the number of connections from every single user, but both successful and the failed ones. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to first save this. Let's go first select table. Okay, we can see the number of users, the usernames, and each count of the records. Let's go to the top values of username and see if we can select more usernames. 15, we have more, 20, we can get more usernames. Okay, so now I'm going to save this. I'm going to say usernames or failed attempts usernames. So I can save this, as you can see, the visualization to an existing dashboard, or I can create a new dashboard. Let's create a new dashboard, save and go to dashboard and add to library, of course. Why do we add to library? Because sometimes we may need to edit or customize the visualization to include more fields so that we can correlate between the data. So save and go to dashboard, and there you go, your dashboard here. The first dashboard, as you can see, that it is for the failed attempts usernames. Of course, this dashboard is not yet complete. We have to go back to the library and customize the visualization so that the correlation between usernames and the failed attempts is established. So what we're going to do here, we're going back to discover, and then from the library, I'm going to open let's see where we added this. Go to back to visualize library, and we have the failed attempts. We're going to click on this one, and here we're going to add a new field. It's the action. So the action here, as you can see, we have failed, build, tear down. We are interested in displaying only the failed attempts. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do the top values of action here, and we're going to create a filter. The filter will be displaying only the failed. Okay, close. As you can see, username Simon here has the most failed attempts, which happens to be 277 attempts. Let's see if we have more, or let's first sort them. We have to sort. So descending, count of records. Let's display 100. Okay. So the username is Simon. Let's answer with Simon. I hope this is correct. And the other one, how many wrong VPN connections attempts were observed in January? Okay, let's go back. So we're going to change the filter here and say January 2022 here. Select January, 1 January, and the end date will be also January 31. As you can see, we have how many failed attempts. Let's see. Put it as metric. Count of records is 2,794, but we want to filter this. Let's go back to table and add the action here. So as you can see, in January we observed 274 failed login attempts. Okay guys, so that concludes the investigation with the Elastic Stack. I hope you guys found this informative and helpful, and I will definitely see you in the next video.